Hey, I'm John, and welcome back to episode 3 of Create+Activate, the podcast where we talk about creativity and activation and the role it has in marketing. Today, I'm joined by Adam, who's going to tell you a little bit about what's in store in this episode.
Cheers, John. So, today we're supposed to have Steve Bland come into the studio with us. Unfortunately, we've had to rearrange. We've done a little bit of a reshuffle in episode order, and we've got Faye Nixon, a senior brand manager from Greene King, coming in, which is super exciting because Faye's previous job was a head of marketing at Derby County, but also West Brom. So it's going to be super exciting to hear the perspective from both club side and brand side. So before we invite Faye into the studio, this is what you've got to look forward to.
Knowing that you can work with a partner and activate for them in a really authentic way because you know the club and they're willing to listen is the most important thing. Some players are better suited to commercial events, some players are better suited to charitable stuff, and other players are better suited going out in the community and kicking a ball around. It's knowing what you've got available to you and accessing it and utilising it in the best way so it's authentic and relevant. I've just done some really great inventive things that I'm really passionate about and been able to push the dial a little bit on that digital front and also the fan engagement side too. That was very Partridge.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Faye. How are you doing?
I'm really good, and thanks for having me.
First of all, could you tell us a little bit about your background in sports marketing?
Yeah, sure. So I started off my career. I was at university. I was studying a marketing management degree. And I got the opportunity to go and work at Derby County in the ticket office. They were going for playoffs, and somebody I knew was like, could you just come and help us? And that's how I got my foot in the door. And continued to work in the ticket office whilst at uni. My degree was a sandwich course, so I managed to do my year out in placement at the football club.
I thought you meant an actual sandwich course.
I was going to say.
Wait, I was like, right, okay. I've not heard of this degree, but I like the sounds of it.
How to tell Adam's older than me. Doesn't know what a sandwich degree is.
If you want to believe I'm older than you, Faye, you go ahead. That makes you feel better. What is a sandwich course? Sorry.
It's a 2 years studying, 1 year out in placement, and then final year wrap up.
Yeah. Okay, sounds delicious.
Yeah. It's not as good as a BLT.
Sorry, so your course was it was a sandwich course.
Sandwich course. Did my year out in placement with Derby County. At the time, they had no marketing team. It was all done via an agency. So I was basically brought in as an assistant and there to work between the football club and the agency that they used at the time.
Right.
It was a huge eye-opener. In that season, the club got promoted to the Premier League.
Right. Was that the Paul Jewell, Billy?
No, it was Billy Davis.
Billy Davis.
Yeah.
Paul Jewell came in the year after.
Yes.
To get relegated.
Ow.
How many points did they finish on that season?
Stop. I am not here for
14.
a football bashing. And to anybody listening, I'm a huge Derby County fan, so this hurts.
But it must have been interesting because I think that season they never expected, they overachieved, didn't they?
So essentially, during that season, we were just getting 1-0 wins.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. The team had such a good camaraderie. They were all there and fighting for each other. And it was so exciting to go to Wembley as the first team back at the new Wembley and get promoted that way. I've also done it and been at Wembley and got beaten. We won't talk about the Villa one.
That's what about that game.
And so just to do that and be working amongst it was incredible. It gave me such a good understanding of how marketing worked. But it was more about the connection with the fans that helped drive the marketing and the marketing being relevant and kind of hitting the sweet spot with supporters. I worked through that season and I kind of got the feeling that they might ask me to stay around and not go back to university.
Right.
So me and my boyfriend at the time had a bit of a chat and we said, look, if they offer me this much money, I'll stay and finish my degree as a night course.
Right.
And it was there or thereabouts, so decided to stay and finished my degree off as a night course, which was the best way for me to do it because it meant that I've managed to continue my career at the time.
Yeah.
And worked a season in the Premier League. It was amazing. Okay. Had some incredible experiences despite the results on the pitch. It was still great for my club to be in the Premier League. Of course, I remember one of the first things that happened was we had to go to a commercial EFL meeting, which was being held at the new Emirates Stadium.
Right.
Brand new, just opened. And it was supposed to be commercial directors. The commercial director was on holiday, the commercial manager was on holiday, and they sent 21-year-old me down to the Emirates.
With all the other Premier League commercial directors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I sat around this boardroom table at the Emirates going, I don't think I belong here.
I'm going to wing it.
I remember walking into the bathroom and just having a moment to just kind of compose myself. And the bathroom was the fanciest thing I'd ever been in my life, going, yeah, I really don't belong here. But it was just...
I'm supposed to be recovering from a night out. I'm a student. Student.
Yeah, but it was amazing. And then the football club was taken over by American ownership group, who came in and revolutionised what we did as a football club. And they were absolutely incredible. Learned so much from them in terms of fan engagement, supporter relationship building, marketing. And we were just in that period of the social media explosion and digital marketing really taking a hold. And that's where my passion has stemmed from, is really getting involved in that side of things. So they came in and assessed the team at the time, and they realised they needed an events arm to the marketing team, and they brought in a marketing manager. I became events manager, which was amazing. I got to do so many incredible things around the supporter experience and fan engagement. And one of the huge transformations that we made at the football club at the time was to bring in lots of digital assets into the stadium. So LED boards, which you only really saw in the Premier League. So we were a championship club with LED boards. And I'm going back a few years, obviously. Big screens in the stadium. But then it was how we operated those. It was very different to how other football clubs operated them, because we were trying to create those moments of exclusivity for our sponsors. And so we were doing things that were revolutionary at the time. They were doing them out in the States, but not over here. So we would take one of our sponsors and give them that moment where they owned the moment. And it wasn't just having their brand up on the big screen and on the LED boards. It was about what can we do as an activation on the pitch that the PA announcers talking about the brand all at the same time. And I mean, we did things like deliver pizzas into people's seats in the stadium.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
The club mascot, Rami, go and do that experience. And it just really revolutionised the opportunity for the commercial team to go out and sell sponsorships in different ways.
So do you think that was driven by American ownership coming into the club and kind of bringing that influence into England? Yeah,
absolutely. So they took us out to the States to see and understand exactly how they were activating on partnership with different brands. So we went to see the NBA, we saw baseball, we saw NFL, and we saw soccer out there. Football. Yeah. But it was so great to see these different experiences. One of the things that we saw out in Seattle was they do what's called a march to match, and they all meet in the centre of Seattle and then march to the stadium. And I think they took that from the Ultras. And it is a sight to behold. So if you've not seen it, I'd recommend going and finding a video to have a look at that. But they had this asset sponsored, and all of the different businesses in the Seattle city area would be branded in green and blue for the Sounders. Wow. That inspired us to get back to Derby and encourage businesses to show their support for the Rams in dressing them in black and white. And it really did transform the things that we did.
You've obviously worked with a lot of sponsors in your time. Who was one of the most daring and who stood out the most to you?
32 Red were great to deal with. I guess they've got that sort of guerrilla marketing approach, not afraid to make a bit of noise and maybe a little bit of controversy, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So they were great. Umbro were excellent, and in different ways with Umbro actually, because we work with them as a corporate partner and a brand, but we also work with them to deliver kit designs, and they were excellent at the kit design thing. It was never a off the shelf design, and that was one of the best things I've been involved in is helping design and kind of lead a bit of the way in which we're going with the kits.
Oh, that's amazing. It feels like you got quite a bit of autonomy in the job and got to get your hands on lots of different areas, not just events.
Yeah. So that was kind of the event side, and then I moved back into the marketing side as the old marketing manager left. So I took on the marketing management role. And actually, we changed the way in which we did things. We were able to basically create an in-house agency. And did everything ourselves. So everything from design to email, digital marketing, CRM management, through to the arm
film
of
team as well.
But the arm of the football club that is now Rams TV.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really great experience building and developing that team. And then we went on a bit of a project and to I guess reform our digital proposition. That there was a buyout clause with the EFL where you could come out of their digital
websites,
yes.
isn't it? They own all the websites, don't they?
Yeah. So we took the decision that we wanted to have ownership at the time, and so we basically built our own website. And it, for me, project managing that along with a few other people was just amazing, because we got to do everything from the ground up.
Yeah.
We knew exactly what we wanted, but we weren't going to take what we wanted. We wanted to get fans' opinion on what they wanted to see and what they needed to make their life easier as a supporter.
Yeah, we were really lucky at that point, because when that decision was made, that I think we jumped onto it ourselves. I think we ended up building about 4 Football League clubs' websites and been on that journey with them as well. And it was great. And I think 3 of them are still clients of ours, aren't they, to this date?
Well, Wrexham were until we got taken over. Obviously.
Yeah, right. I don't think Ryan Reynolds likes us very much.
That's a shame.
No, I think they just want to take it a different way, which is fine. No hard feelings, Ryan. Sure he's watching this.
I bet he is.
Sure he is. You mentioned 32 Red, and obviously they're another one of our clients that we work with, and obviously we worked with 32 Red with you when you were at Derby as well, before your Greene King times. And what I find amazing with 32 Red, and probably the reason why you've mentioned them there as one of the best sponsors to work with, is because the sponsorship managers care, and they care about the fans, and they care about the club, and they're at most games, and it's not a case of them just sponsoring it, slapping a logo on the side of the pitch and just leaving it for 2 years. Even them investing and trying to work in the community projects that they did at Derby. I can't remember the name of the one. There was definitely a community project that we did at the time.
They did a mental health project with us, and the name escapes me too, which I'm sure if anyone ever listens to this from the community trust at Derby County, they'll kick me. But no, you're absolutely right. 32 Red did care. Our first season, for example, with 32 Red as shirt sponsor, we had their logo in red, and I guess that was not a miss on the football club's part, because we did at the time challenge them on their decision. We wanted them to have their logo in black.
Yeah.
But I think that comes from building the relationship and partnering together.
Exactly.
And as soon as they could understand that actually serving their logo, although it's really important for them and their brand that their logo is served in red, but actually it doesn't then resonate with supporters, and it actually adversely affects them. That for every other season they've either been in black or white on the club shirts, and I think that's that relationship building, knowing that you can work with a partner and activate for them in a really authentic way, because you know the club and they're willing to listen, is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Lots of fun developing the website and an app. And we work with some really good partners in doing that. I think I caught the eye of another football club and got made a transfer acquisition.
How did you feel about it?
Was that on a Bosman or?
I don't know, you'll have to ask my agent.
How did that feel, leaving the club that you love and support to go and work somewhere else?
Oh, it was highly emotional. I'd worked at the club at that point for, I think, 12 years.
Wow.
So I'd grown from a kid into a woman, as well as learning my trade, and developing a team of staff and that were excellent at what they did and knew everything to the nth degree, and at times, and I'm going to say this in the nicest way, better than the football club, because they were so great at what they did. They were so talented. But they cared about the football club too. And not all of them were Derby fans, but they cared. In fact, one of them was a Villa fan.
Really?
And still is. And to this day remains one of my closest friends.
He didn't support City, did he?
I'd just like to put on record, I've never supported City.
There's a picture that suggests differently.
Photoshop's a wonderful thing. Edit that out.
I left to go to a football club that was in the Premier League, and to a position that was head of marketing rather than marketing manager.
Right.
And
was that just to take yourself out of your comfort zone, do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wanted some career progression, and for me that was working in the Premier League.
So at Derby County, obviously lots of football players there. How did they get involved in the sponsorships? Were they really willing to do it and be part of it, or were they kind of quite sat back and laid back?
I think in all walks of life, you get different characters, don't you? And not every football player is going to be comfortable going and doing a sponsorship activation. And I think part of the good bit at both football clubs was that people knew the players well enough who should go and do those events. And some players are better suited to commercial events. Some players are better suited to charitable stuff, and other players are better suited going out in the community and kicking a ball around. And again, I think I said this before, it's knowing what you've got available to you and accessing it and utilising it in the best way so it's authentic and relevant. And I think that will become the theme of today's chat, is about being authentic and relevant, because you get the best out of things by doing that. Not trying to be something that you're not. And I've done some events where we've had to take a player to it because that's the player available, and it's not been carnage, but it's not been pleasant for anybody involved, the player, the people watching it probably, or the sponsor.
We talk about sponsors as a golden opportunity, and they can really leverage their sponsorship. Are there any sponsors you've just seen that have just completely wasted that opportunity and not really maximised it?
Yeah, and I think it's easy to do that. Either you've not got your business set up correctly to activate the sponsorship. So Derby was really good in the sense that we had not just a commercial sales team, but they had account managers that would activate the partnerships on behalf of clients. And I think that was something a bit new, to particularly at championship club level.
So how would that work? Would it be a commercial team would secure the sponsorship contract, if you like, then pass over to an account team? Would they then be responsible for activating creatively as well as? Or that
came a bit with the marketing team, actually.
Yeah.
So if there was something within the commercial contract that was, we need to do this, but it kind of impacted across the marketing and comms team, that's when we would get involved and help drive that ideation of what we were going to do.
Yeah, and sometimes that would come from the sponsor, sometimes that would come from you, or sometimes it's a collaboration between the two.
And we talked about the activity that you did with 32 Red and Pass It On.
Pass It On, yeah.
Well, Pass It On was something that we created Derby.
Yeah. And we took it further.
And you took
Villa
it and then did it with
Preston.
32 Reds other clubs.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I can be pretty proud of that.
Yeah,
fact.
absolutely. Yeah.
'Cause we wrote the content, we wrote the kind of questions and the stylization. We hired Mark Smith, the comedian and broadcaster, so who was a Derby fan. So it was nice that he had that connection with our club, and then he's gone and done it at the other club.
Actually, it's come full circle because now we've used Mark Smith for some Greene King stuff recently.
It's mad. That wasn't me though. I don't
that
want
was us.
anybody to think that.
That was us.
I know, but I don't want anybody to think they're trying to get my mate a job. Mark, if you're listening,
even put two and two
I
together
would, obviously.
Just for my benefit, the Pass It On campaign, was that the mental health one?
No. So Pass It On was just a very simple interaction, a great one, really engaging. It was just you had headphones on.
It was essentially content and digitally activating for 32 Red. How can we serve 32 Red's brand in a fun, creative content space online and excite the fans? So I pretty much stole the idea from Keith Lemon and
it's off,
Celebrity Juice.
Celebrity Juice. Do it on there. So you've got headphones on, playing music really loud, and you've got to say the word to the next person. They've got to say it to the next person, and it gets right down to the end, and then whatever they say. The difference between some of the clubs doing that content was amazing, because you'd go to one club who were absolutely fine with whatever came out the other end, and then you go to another club, a club that I like quite a lot, who weren't happy with anything that came out the other end, and the content just got stripped right back because everything was that hilarious.
Yeah.
That it was almost a bit too hilarious.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where you've got to find that balance again, where it's like, if you're going to do this type of content, either go and do it properly, or just don't even try to do it, because if you're going to strip it back, it ends up being pretty boring. Exactly.
And we've had I've personally seen examples of that we've recorded content and it's perhaps not past the sign-off process. And you're right, you've either got to be brave and do things differently.
Or admit you'll never do it.
Yeah, and I think, again, back to the other point, was being authentic and knowing what you're trying to achieve, is that we knew the players that we would get the best out of for that content. We picked the lads that we knew were funny. And it's easy to do that when you're at a smallish football club. And I say small in terms of staff size, because you have that little bit more interaction, perhaps. So you know, or you know the player manager, and you can say, right, this is what I'm doing. Can you help me identify the right players to do that with? Because like I said, if they feel comfortable, you get so much more out of them. And it was the same with kit launches. You would know the best players to utilise to get the best out of that kit launch idea.
Absolutely. Were you there when Lampard and Rooney, Lampard then Rooney came in? Did you see an increase in sponsorship opportunities with those bigger names coming in? Yeah, absolutely. We certainly had bigger brands want to be associated, but I think the important thing is as well that local companies wanted to be involved and have that association with the football club at that time. So it was certainly it increased the media profile, so naturally other brands and organisations want to then be involved with that. Yeah. And were they really open to sponsorship stuff as well and help? Because it's effectively the thing that frustrates me a little bit when you come across other managers or players who aren't interested and they want to get out as quick as they can of sponsorship, content, production, whatever we might want to call it, is they're not connecting the dots, the fact that that's helping the club. You know, these sponsors are what fund a lot of the club's activities, and without those sponsors, the club would pretty much be on its knees at times. So by doing those content opportunities, that's part and parcel of being a manager or a player. How were they with it? Did they absolutely understand that as well, that they were in there, they had to kind of live and breathe it, and they're absolute pros, right? Oh yeah, naturally I think coming from huge clubs, I think they understood the commercial side of it and really helped, and were certainly flexible in terms of what they would then deliver. And different managers have different approaches as well. Some managers will come in and say,
do what you like with the players, utilise them for whatever you need them to do on a commercial, or it's not just commercial, it's that CSR thing as well. Yeah. So that they would have that conversation with you. Other managers would say, like, leave us alone, we're doing our job. And sometimes other managers would say, use the coaching staff, we're here to help.
Right.
Although I worked at the club at Derby County for a long time, it never became stale. Different managers, different players, different kits to launch, different marketing times as well. When I first started, we were sending postcards out and direct mail pieces.
Right.
And then fast forward, and it's all so digitally focused, but not digitally focused because the club were trying to save money, digitally focused because they could do better. One of the best things I did was a season ticket campaign where we sent fans a personalised video. So the video arrived into their email box with, "Hi, Adam," and it was personalised to their seat details to show that this is your seat.
From a player?
Yeah, from Bradley Johnson.
Poor Bradley. How long did he have to sit there? I suppose Derby, I got that many fans.
Well, ow!
Sorry, I can't help myself. I can't help it.
Actually, really scientific.
Yeah.
We did a dissection of all of the names on the database that we had, and we found by doing X amount of names, you'd cover 94% of the database or something like that. And so anybody that fell outside of that got a slightly less bespoke version, but they still got their seat details. So rather than the player saying the name, it would just have their seat details on. But that in itself was like wildly unique at the time. And that piece of personalisation came from the chairman at the time, Mel Morris. He had his fingers in a lot of pies, had a digital agency that we could then utilise that piece of software, and not something that I'm sure that we'd have ever had access to at the football club at the time without that connection. So I've just done some really great inventive things that I'm really passionate about, and been able to push the dial a little bit on that digital front, and also the fan engagement side too.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here then. What's your proudest piece of work you think you ever did for Derby?
During COVID, most of my team were furloughed, as you can imagine. It was a really testing time, as you can imagine. It was for everybody. But there was myself and the graphic designers at the time that remained in situ, and we had a couple of kits to launch. Well, we had 3, and creating that campaign for one of the kits specifically. So we did some really good stuff. So I think the away kit was the first one to be released, and it was a really simple activation of getting Niall Horan from One Direction to release it on his social media channels. So sent him a kit. He takes a photo of himself.
Is he a Derby fan?
Yeah.
Is he? I never knew that.
He is indeed.
What's the connection there?
His family are Irish. I remember serving his dad in the ticket office many years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I saw his dad recently at a game, and he still polite as ever and came over and said hello.
Wow.
I was going to say that. Do people recognise you? Are you part of the furniture when you go to Derby?
It's not quite like that, but you know, the fans that you might have had a bit of interaction with, and we had like a fans forum group that we work with, again, something that I helped set up. We had a new CEO come in, and he said, right, what's your burning problem? And I was like, there's a disconnect between the football club and the fan base, and I think that can be really resolved by going out into the city and doing some fans forums, and we created a what we called Your 90 Minutes, and we did a thing at the stadium where we had basically a representative of the supporters clubs groups. They would come in, I can't remember if it was once a month or once every 2 months, and they would have face-to-face time with the CEO and the manager at the time, and that really helped build those relations.
When things are going well and results are good, I bet those forums were probably quite friendly.
Do you know what? They were always a challenge, because even when something's when the football's good, there's other things that fans fixate on, but the point wasn't to pay lip service to supporters. It was to actually help and make the football club better. You've got to remember, I really cared, so I wanted to do anything that I could to make the club the best it possibly could be. So it could be challenging, particularly when the results weren't great, but it wasn't always not challenging when the results were great and we were flying.
So why is Niall Horan a Derby fan?
So
Come on.
To bring it back, I don't know why his dad was, but I would assume...
Did he fly from Ireland to...
Yeah, it still does. Still does.
Is it because of Paul McGrath?
No.
Come on.
That's... Yeah, but the timing's off. So I think it was more the champions of England in 71, 72, perhaps. I've never...
Paul McGrath's late 90s.
Did they not win a European Cup? Derby?
Early 90s.
Was it? That Villa early?
Yeah, good point.
Did they not win a European Cup, Derby?
No, not like Villa.
You just confused Derby with Nottingham Forest.
No,
please, can we put this out of the podcast? I'm only joking. But me and him were having words after.
I'm going to tell Sam at work that you thought he supported Nottingham Forest.
I thought Brian Clough worked well.
He did. He was at Derby first.
Yeah, he did.
Was Derby first, cut his teeth with the Rams, and then went off to Prosper at Forest with 44 days at Leeds in between.
And went to Forest. But I think the story is that he probably could have done that at Derby if they gave him the funds that he was just trying to sign off himself anyway. But I'm sure Derby would have gone on to do great things if they trusted him.
Remained living in Derby though, because that's where his heart was.
Yeah, and then his son managed them.
Yes,
so managed them twice, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Twice, yeah. And I think he's at like Mansfield or
something. He is at Mansfield, yeah. So back to Niall Horan. Shall we get there? So his dad's a Derby fan, and so he grew up a Derby fan. We managed to get him to release the away kit. So that was number one ticked off. I actually can't remember how we released the home shirt, which is terrible on my part, but I can't.
I suppose that the away one was that big. Yeah. Just overshadowed.
But then the third one was the bit where that was my moment. I came up with an idea. We'd got a pink shirt that we designed with Umbro way before COVID, because the way that shirt cycles work, you sign off your kit the September before, it's then released in the following sort of May to July time normally. And because the season started late because of COVID, we weren't launching the shirt until a little bit later on, and I knew that by having a pink shirt, we had this opportunity to work with a breast cancer charity, and our community trust do some fantastic work with cancer services locally. So partnered with the community trust to find some supporters who had breast cancer. We got them to the stadium, and we sat them in the south stand, socially distanced, because we're having to work with that kind of part of it as well. And had we not been socially distanced, it would have been slightly different, the kind of the release mechanic. But we had to get Wayne up on the big screen in the stadium. So Wayne Rooney's comes alive on the big screen in the stadium, and he thanks the supporters for being there and asks them to open the box that they've got. They open the box and they reveal the shirt. And each of them have got a shirt, and we filmed that content effectively, and that was how we released the shirt. It was incredible. We got so much fantastic PR. We donated £10 from every adult shirt sale, and £5 from every junior shirt sale.
Big chunk as well, that isn't it?
Yeah, to charity. Umbro helped us fund that.
Right. Okay.
And then it got picked up across all of the media. We released it for Breast Cancer Month in October. We managed to get ourselves on Lorraine Kelly talking about breast cancer in men, because it's a real challenge to get men to check. So not only did we launch a great shirt, but we also managed to do something incredible for a charity. We helped to stimulate some men to go and do that check-in process. So I just felt incredibly proud of that, and also sold out the shirt too. So
yeah,
couldn't be a bad thing. Yeah.
It's that awareness, isn't it? And
yeah,
if you've got 30,000 people seeing that in a stadium,
absolutely,
it's that reminder even to go home and check and whatever.
And actually, just to bring it back to Niall, because we keep coming back there. Sure, there's probably a song there somewhere, isn't there?
There's only one direction we're going with this question. Thank you very much. I'm here all week.
But he kindly offered his services to come back and do the third shirt. So
wow.
It was a little different because I think when we released the away kit that he did, it was completely like seeing nobody. And then fast forward a few months and we were able to do things socially distanced.
Yeah.
So he came to the stadium, he did a little mini photo shoot with Wayne Rooney. And you can imagine Niall Horan and Wayne Rooney putting that on their Instagram and Twitter channels.
Huge.
Just blew up. So yeah, incredibly proud. Little bit lucky because we've got those two amazing people that can serve that content out.
Like those two names are probably in the top 50 most recognisable people in the world, aren't they?
Probably, yeah.
They're huge.
Yeah.
How was it for you being such a big Derby fan and having that connection with the club? Did you find it beneficial, or at times did it frustrate you because of the love of the club and the fact that you grew up supporting them? How did you find that dynamic?
Pretty easy on the most part.
Yeah.
Of course, there were times where you would see things or be frustrated, and I think the bit that I would find frustrating was fans or friends that were fans saying things that I knew weren't true but couldn't talk about,
right? Because
obviously you've got confidentiality things in place, and that was probably the bit that I struggled with the most, but also sometimes found quite funny because I could kind of just internally laugh at things. But
so is that around transfers and stuff like that? Because with the marketing team, I've always wondered how it works on transfer, whether it's transfer deadline day or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So let's say it's Derby or any club. The club know it's happening. The marketing team have to get everything ready. Mm-hmm. How long is that time span sometimes, or can it vary from sometimes transfer deadline day, it's an hour, turn around an image quickly, and then maybe in July, a couple of days, but it's still speculation. You're looking on Twitter that this player's signing for Coventry or whatever, but you know that you've already signed for Derby. Mm-hmm. Is that the way it can work at times? Yeah,
so because of the length of time I've worked in football, I've seen it dramatically change.
Right.
When I first started, I would never have any idea of who the transfers were and who was signing, because it just didn't happen that way. And then you kind of move forward a little bit more and things
Is that because they weren't digitally activating those transfers?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
You move forward a little bit further in time, and then it starts becoming website releases and maybe a bit of email comms. And again, that bypassed me because that just goes to the comms team. Mm-hmm. And then flip forward a little bit further, you've got the social media element thrown into the mix, and that's where the marketing team would get involved and be creating graphics and video content and video content separately, but we all had a joined up approach, and actually the marketing team would write the kind of content strategy, or strategy is a bit rich. It's more of a content plan because you're trying to work to within probably quite short time scales. And there's been transfers that at Derby County that we'd done the graphics and things for, and then it didn't come off.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's been other times where you've got 10 minutes to get something out, and the players sat there and you've got to do something quickly.
Wow, that's amazing. So you could literally be driving home listening to TalkSport, listening to them speculate about a player who you've just been doing a photo shoot with.
Yeah.
And they're saying that they go to a different club and you're just laughing, thinking,
Yeah, and it has happened, but it's happened on the other side of it as well, where I'm like, no, we're signing that player. We've just done the graphics for that player, and then
they end up going somewhere else.
Yeah,
mental.
Yeah, lots of weird and quirky things that happen in the world of football.
So football, I know it's been a big part of your life. What was the catalyst to move away from what you've been doing all your life in football clubs and helping market and expand them?
I just wanted a bit of a change. I've worked in football for 16 years, and whilst I love football, and I clearly do, I will watch any old rubbish. No jokes about watching Derby there.
I'm literally biting my tongue. So I've already done it twice. I can't do it 3 times.
No, when I say watch any old rubbish, I just mean it doesn't matter what's on the TV. Yeah. I will watch it if it's football. I really don't mind.
Yeah.
But I just wanted a bit of a better work-life balance. Football is tiresome. You work 6-day weeks most weeks, and
every match day as well.
Yeah. And it's nights as well, and it's not just the matches, because of the nature of where marketing sits. You get involved in the fan engagement, so you're doing events, and I just kind of got tired, and COVID took its toll, 'cause working with a streamlined team, and I just wanted a different opportunity, and I saw the job at Greene King come about, and it was sport and alcohol, and what's not to love about that?
Absolutely.
But now you're in that role, and how have you kind of seen the effects of being able to use sports stars? Obviously, in our campaigns that we've done together, we've used a lot of great famous faces. Have you seen, by using those faces and associating those faces to the brand, that they've actually elevated or skyrocketed results? Or
yeah, absolutely. Just by having a famous face in the content that we produce, it just allows that cut through in a different way than just a different video. And that's not to say that content without famous faces is poor, because it's not. And some of the work we're working on at the moment doesn't have that talent in it. But if you get the right talent, it can make a campaign soar, because you don't just get the opportunity to serve that content on digital channels, but you get the talkability and the PR side of that campaign as well.
Yeah.
And serving content on the talents channels is a win.
That's the big
because
thing.
They've got the audience size, and you're not just then talking to your audience, you're talking to their audience, and potentially gaining a new market share, or at least new eyeballs to your brand.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a big part of the process that we went through together, wasn't it, in terms of picking the right talent to ensure that their audience was right. It's not just about getting a famous face for the sake of having a famous face. It's about getting one that actually aligns to what you want to say as a brand and your values.
That's authentic.
That's authentic.
I'm just going to keep saying authentic.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's my buzzword today.
But then also create content, and the content ideas feels authentic for that person. For example, the stuff we're doing with James Haskell is absolutely on the nose for what he would probably just do for his normal social channels, so it doesn't feel out of place. So you've come from the football background, you're now in a position of having to promote sport in the home of pub sport.
Yeah.
So it's not just football. What other sports are you kind of seeing on the rise, apart from men's football?
Yeah, I was just about to say women's football.
Exactly. I'll add them up, you hit them down.
And the success of the Lionesses in the Women's Euros was just fantastic. I was very lucky to work on the board of Derby County Women. I was just really passionate about women having the access to the same thing as the men had, so whether that be training ground facilities or playing facilities. And clearly the women's team and the men's team can't play simultaneously at the main stadium, can they? But just having that opportunity, having access to physios or sports psychologists, that sort of thing, that's what we should be championing, that equality there.
Yeah.
But yes, women's football has exploded thanks to the Lionesses. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the WSL gets on this season in terms of people coming into pub to watch. We've just conducted some research that suggests that more people are now interested in watching women's football out of home. So I will be looking on this year to see just how that does resonate with people actually coming into pub and watching that sport. But that's down to us setting our brand position as we're the home of pub sport, and we will show the Women's Super League.
Yeah, fantastic. And what other sports? So F1 is always on the rise. It feels like we're always talking about F1 on this podcast, but it's definitely on the rise, and it's a weird one where a couple of years ago I would never have even thought to go to the pub to watch F1, whereas now it feels like it's absolutely something where people are looking forward to the Sunday so they can go and have the row, sit there, watch it together.
I think the F1 complements the football because you've then got a full day of sport almost, haven't you? And you can mix it up, and you don't have to be watching the whole race either. You can be watching football and then dip into the F1 is my take on it. And sorry to any F1 enthusiasts out there. I like the F1, but I think the casual fan would be happy with that experience of being able to watch different sports at different times. Rugby is certainly a big thing for Greene King, and particularly international rugby.
Six Nations.
Yeah, Six Nations
World
is huge
Cup,
for us.
So if there was one takeaway or thing you've learned over your years in sports marketing that you'd want our listeners to know, what would it be?
I'm surprised you're asking.
I think I know this one.
We all know what it is because I've said it at least 10 times.
Get Niall Horan involved in your campaigns. Is that what it is?
Yeah. It's just to be authentic and to know your audience. So Greene King do some really great work on segmentation and understanding who our guests are. But it's about knowing your audience and knowing your product as well, and what you're trying to achieve. Having that knowledge and the robustness of knowing those things allows you to go and be more flexible and more creative, and keep it authentic for who your audience is, because then you can push boundaries without hurting or upsetting the brand.
Thanks, Faye. It's been amazing having you on today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely brilliant. And you can catch me on LinkedIn on John Butler. You can also catch me on Instagram at JohnTB77.
Bit of Instagram.
There you go.
Look at his Instagram, is he?
That was very partridge.
You can find me on Instagram, Insta by Adam, and on LinkedIn, Adam Britton, TrunkBBI. You can find TrunkBBI at trunkbbi.com and also on Instagram, TrunkBBI. Join us next time where we'll be discovering more about sports marketing and sponsorship through the use of Create and Activate. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye-bye.